Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now. Today, we're honored to be joined by the great Sean Action Jackson of Competition Distributing, a company that's become a cornerstone of the vintage motorcycle world. Sean will share how Competition Distributing continues to support riders and restorers of early American motorcycles, what it takes to reproduce century-old parts with modern precision, and why preserving motorcycle history is more important than ever. If you're into Harley-Davidson heritage, board track racers, or the golden age of motorcycling, this one's a must-listen.
So when you're telling people you're racing these old bikes, they think slow. Well, we're not really going slow. We're still doing 90 miles an hour, but just without brakes or anything, no suspension.
Oh, that's it.
One Gang Worldwide podcast, brought to you by Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping. Since 1978, Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping has been a trusted name in transporting motorcycles safely across the country. With custom designed pallets and air ride trailers, your bike is secure and protected every step of the way. By choosing Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping, you're supporting a dedicated small business that prioritizes quality and customer satisfaction. Ship with a peace of mind, knowing your motorcycle is in expert hands. Visit keyboardmotorcycleshipping.com for more information. Now, let's dive into today's episode. What's up, One Gang? We got an awesome show for you today, man. We got Sean Jackson from Competition Distributing. Sean, thanks for joining the show, man. I greatly appreciate you taking the time.
Well, hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you reaching out, and sorry it took so long to get here.
Hey, better late than never, man.
Yeah.
Hey, we're happy to have you. Let's start at the beginning. What kind of childhood did you have? Were you a grease monkey out of the gate, or did you find that kind of growing on you as you got older? Where'd you grow up? Give us the whole background.
All right, yeah. So, no, it started at a young age. You know, I really started kind of getting into mechanics and building stuff when I was right around like 10. My mom, you know, my mom was a single mom, and she met this guy when I was really young, and he was a biker, and you know, he moved in with us at a young age, and like, you know, him and my mom got more and more serious, and then, you know, ended up, you know, pretty much raising me as my stepdad, you know.
Right.
But when he showed out, he, you know, all he really had to his name was everything in his house was like a bike, you know. And it was a 79 lowrider, FXE, and it was just like one of those things. It's like when you're a kid, that kind of stuff sticks with you, you know. So like he rolls in, he's got this giant, long, jet black hair and beard and everything, just like your typical old school biker, you know. He had been riding since the 60s, so you know, it was like his thing. So that's like kind of what kicked it all off for me, the bike thing at least. And it was like a perfect storm, you know, because all that was kind of happening right when like the Discovery, Jesse James biker Bill Laugh stuff started hitting the floor in the early 2000s and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it all kind of started taking off, and I was right at that age, and everything was like super exciting back then. You know, I was like, oh man, this is really cool stuff. And he would, you know, he rode motorcycle. He'd take me everywhere with him on the back. You know,
That's
we'd ride all over the country and like do different stuff. And you know, all his buddies were real cool, you know, biker dudes and stuff. So that's just what I kind of grew up with.
But yeah, hey, Sean, were you around when he was kind of wrenching on the bikes too? Was that part of the thing?
Yeah, so like he wasn't. It's kind of funny. So like he never was like super mechanically inclined. Like, I mean, he was dangerous. Like he could do like your normal things, like, you know, change your oil and, you know, replace tires, stuff. Just like your basic stuff. He wasn't like a fabricator or like a machinist or anything, you know. But he knew enough to like kind of school me and get me started in it. And you know, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I've been in Pennsylvania my entire life, but up here in northwestern Pennsylvania, right on the lake, on Lake Erie. But
is that Amish country?
Well, yeah. I actually, where I live now, I have Amish neighbors all around me. We're out in the middle of nowhere, so. But yeah, so the very first thing like comes to memory. The first thing I really did mechanically was I had a little 5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton engine. I bought a go-kart from a buddy. I saved up some money and so bought this go-kart, and it didn't run or anything. So like he had like a little workshop in our basement because we didn't have a garage or anything. And he was like, "Hey, I'll show you how to take this apart and we'll go through it." So that's kind of where I started. I was like I said, I was about 10, and I didn't want a go-kart. I wanted a mini bike. I wanted a motorcycle, So I ended up getting this little little mini bike frame from a buddy, and got this motor running with him, and we put the motor together and rebuilt the entire thing and put it in this mini bike. And then the chopper craze started hitting on television, and I was like, man, I want a mini bike chopper, So I had some other buddies that were like, their dads were helping them and stuff. So long story short, we ended up all building these mini bike choppers. So we had like 3 or 4 of us, and we'd ride on back dirt roads because we grew up out here in the country.
Yeah.
We could ride on the road and stuff. So we 10, 11, 12-year-old kids out riding dirt roads on mini bike choppers. We were like, living the dream.
That's killer, man. That's
kind of where it all kicked off for me, for sure.
Got it.
Well, then you wound up riding a Sportster to school at age 15. What was that like as a teenager? Were you picking up dirt through it? Really?
Yeah, that was crazy. So he had bought that bike for my mother to ride with him, and my mom, long story short there, she ended up getting scared and she didn't really want to ride it. So when I came of age in Pennsylvania at the time, I don't know if it still has that or not, but I could get my learner's permit when I was 15. So I went right to the DMV, got my learner's permit, and I started riding motorcycle before I could even drive a car legally.
That's cool,
man. We'd ride around, and I started riding that thing to high school. And I'll never forget, I didn't really understand the aura of the motorcycle yet, because obviously I'd only been riding mini bikes and stuff. But
yeah,
it kind of kicked in like the first time I ever rode that thing to school. It was in 1988, 883 Candy Apple Red Sportster. And I rode that thing to high school, and I parked in the parking lot where I normally would hang out with my buddies back there. And everybody's like, "Oh, this is cool," and all the girls are coming out and stuff. I'm like, "Oh, this is cool," And being a young kid, you're like, "This is awesome." So next thing you know, I'm getting ready to leave school that day. It's the first day I ever rode it. I go out, and my principal and the vice principal of our high school is standing out in the parking lot, like checking out the bike, and they're like asking me all these questions. And I was like, man, this motorcycle stuff's pretty cool, So that's
yeah. I mean, shit, you're 15 with a candy apple red Harley sitting in the parking lot, man. You had girls surrounding you. What a better feeling than that?
And I had a solo seat. My mom made me keep the solo seat on it. She was like, "Hey, they were nice enough to let me ride, but they didn't want me riding people," which I understand. Being a young kid, you're kind of stupid. So
yeah, get it.
But yeah, so that was always a question. It's like, "Oh, can I go for a ride?" Now it's like, "Nah, I don't have a seat on," But
they didn't have the stick bitch pads back then, or
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, well, I still, I hope my mom never listened to this, but I still figured out ways to give them rides on the
yeah,
bike,
I'm sure.
Sitting on the fender.
When it comes to girls, we always figure out ways to do things.
Sorry, Mom.
What's up, One Gang? I used to think that if I spent big money on riding gear with a logo on the back, I was getting top quality. I gave Leather Up a shot. I wasn't sure at first, could I really get quality gear without spending a fortune? But after putting tens of thousands of miles on their jackets and vests, I had my answer. No busted zippers, no loose stitching, just solid, well-made gear that lasts. Leather Up carries trusted brands like Milwaukee Leather, Hot Leathers, and more, with gear for every rider and every budget. Plus, their customer service actually cares and picks up the phone, something rare these days. So do yourself a favor, check out leatherup.com. Whether you need jackets, vests, chaps, boots, helmets, or luggage, they've got you covered. And because you're part of the One Gang Worldwide family, use code CW20 at checkout for 20% off your entire order. Stop overpaying, gear up with Leather Up, and see the difference yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Sean, when did you get into the hands-on side of things, like fabrication, mechanical work, all that stuff? What was it? School, mentors, trial and error type stuff?
Yeah, so that for me, it all kind of came naturally. So, like, I started with the engine when I was really young, and I always like stayed in it. I did a lot of fabrication on that mini bike trapper that first when we started. His buddy, he wasn't a welder, so his buddy Danny White was one of his best friends, and he was the guy that I really looked up to too, because he was like the Jesse James. He could build everything, he could do anything, he could paint, he could fab, he could build engines, whatever you could dream up, he would do it.
He's the
So
guy.
we would go down to his house, and I'd be like, "Hey, I want to make this like this," and he'd be like, "All right, do it." He wouldn't just do it for me; he'd show me how to do it, and then he'd make me do it. So that's like kind of what really ignited the fire. And then all through high school, we had like shop and power class, they called it. And by my senior year, it's so funny. We always do all these like mechanical projects and stuff. I'd bring stuff in, and we'd build like, all kinds of different stuff. Like we had a CNC, like a plasma table when they first came out. It was like the new technology at the time. And it was like a big thing. And we come in and make stuff. And then by my senior year, I was so into that class. Like my senior year, my teacher actually let me and another friend of mine do the curriculum for the whole rest of that year.
Oh,
So
wow.
like we
That's
actually
cool.
came up with all the projects and like did all the
Nice.
stuff. So like I was just into it. And then, graduating high school, I didn't go to a traditional college. I went to a school called Universal Technical Institute, UTI.
Yep.
And I went in for mechanics and automotive stuff because I was always back and forth between bikes and cars. I really like cars a lot too. And I went down to Exton, Pennsylvania, outside of Philly. Went to school down there for a while, and then when I came back home, I was 19, 20-ish, and I came back home and I realized there wasn't really good money in mechanics, like wrenching, like automotive mechanics and stuff. So I was like, this is kind of, I can make better money doing other things. So I ended up getting into, it was like a bunch of different stuff in a short period of time. So I was doing, my buddy's dad owned a big construction company. I worked construction with those guys for a while. And at the time I put myself through, I went and got a CDL driver's license so I could drive commercial truck. And then I started driving like a tanker truck because that was really good money. It was just crazy hours. I would work, 24-hour shifts and stuff hauling like different materials and stuff. And then when I was doing all that, I started kind of thinking back to like the past and like what I really enjoyed doing. And it was building stuff, that's where I got my kick. So I want to start focusing on that stuff more. So I ended up, when I was working a full-time job, I ended up putting myself through welding school. So I was doing classes at night and fabrication stuff at night. And I would leave work and go do that. And then my brother called me one day, and he worked at a company called Power Drives. And that's what really changed my life, because Power Drives gave me all the rest of the tools to put the puzzle together. And what I mean by that is like, and he called me, he's like, "Hey, I want you to come work with me in the hydraulics department." At the time, he was the only guy working in the hydraulics division there. And I went and interviewed, they gave me the job. By that time, I had all my welding certifications for all different processes and stuff. And when I started there, they started me as it was like $12 an hour. I was 20, I think like literally 20 or 21 years old. And I just started, I went right into machining and fabricating hydraulics and hydraulic cylinders. And we'd build them from scratch. Like we'd build complete power units and cylinders and different systems and stuff like that. And I was always really good at picking up on stuff. So like I would pick up on it quick, and I could like just build on that. So I kind of like, I took to it real well, and I really absorbed a lot of knowledge from that place. I was like getting to do all these different things.
Yeah.
And they saw that. So like I started kind of moving my way up the chain there rather quickly. It was kind of, my whole story is kind of crazy. So it was like, it all happened so fast now when I look back at it. But I was doing hydraulics. My brother did that. I was in that department with him for about 3 years, and then he ended up leaving because they were getting ready to shut that department down. And at that time, I had transitioned into just straight up fab department. So when I transitioned into fab, it was all fab and machine work. So I learned how to do machining and everything on manual. So I ran lathes and mills and welding and everything.
Good
And
skill.
one of my best friend now, Kevin, he was an engineer there. And he come out and he was like, "Hey, we do this thing where we go out in the field and work on these systems, these locomotives and stuff. Would you be interested in getting into field work?" Because there was a lot more money, you was you get to go out and travel and do stuff. So
Of course.
and at the time, another one of my buddies was doing that worked there too, and he was
Making
telling me
good money too, right?
Right. So I was like, yeah, I'd be interested. I'm a young guy, I don't have any kids or
Absolutely.
anything. At this time, my wife and I are dating. We're not married yet, but we're dating. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I started traveling and doing field service work, working on locomotive heating systems that we would develop. So I took to that really quick. I was traveling all over the country, and my buddy that was doing it ended up leaving, and I was the guy. Like, they just made me that guy.
Oh, wow.
I moved into that full time. My buddy Kevin, they got me into it. He was an engineer. He was my boss then. I reported directly to him, and it took off like wildfire. Like, we started, that's all I did. I would live on the road like 7-8 months of the year, traveling,
Wow.
working on locomotives and these systems. And as it went along, I started working with Kevin and another guy on their team. His name was Brad. He was also an engineer. He's about the same age as myself. And like, we just really hit it off. We were a really tight-knit group, and we started developing new systems in our own systems. And I would bring back feedback and we work on them together. And it just felt like it really started exploding. And at this time, I'm like going all over the world. Like, they're sending me overseas. I'm going,
kidding.
different countries.
How old are you at this point?
Oh man, I'm, early 20s. I'm 20, 23, 24.
Wow.
I think I went to Korea when I was like 25 or 26 or something like that. Working on these things. And the company, like, I was just going by myself. The company was putting me in charge of all this stuff. Like, I was training crews, and like, the guys how to work our systems and develop our stuff. And it was just like, it was crazy. It was just like, it was like, it all happened so fast. It was a really short amount of time. And it was just like boom, boom, boom. And it was hard to kind of keep up with, but so we just kept doing this. And then I got to the point where I started getting really good at working with people. Like, I've always been like a people person as well. So like, I would make connections with some of these customers, and they would like invite me back to their houses and meet their families and like do all this stuff. And they want me to hang out with them on a personal level because they'd be into like cars and bikes and all that stuff. And, when they're doing all this, they're like, I was like starting to sell them things. Like, it was just like a natural, like, oh, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, this, can you help me with this? And it like started working into like more of a sales thing than actual work. And, I say, light bulb went out for me, because I'm seeing like what sales guys make and everything. And, at this time I'm making good money especially for a young kid. But, I went to Kevin and I was like, hey, I'm starting to sell some stuff here. Like, I think I should, do something like to transition to more of like a field service, or like not a field service, more of like a field sales, like kind of technical representative kind of thing, So, that all transitioned really easily, because I landed this huge account at a major Class 1 railroad. And Kevin and Brad and I, at that time I'd moved up again. Now Kevin was a coworker. He wasn't my boss anymore. And I was reporting directly to the VP of our company. He was my boss.
Nice.
So, we started selling all these systems, and we developed like a water separation systems. Myself, Brad, and Kevin, we were on some patents. Like, we were actually patenting our designs.
No kidding. Damn.
Yeah. And
It's impressive for that age.
Yeah, it just started, like I said, it was just crazy. It started taking off. So I just kept going up and up. And, at this time now, I'm just like literally traveling all over and selling stuff and, running these big accounts and all that kind of stuff. But what happened is like, it started becoming to the point where I started getting kind of unhappy, because like, I wasn't really doing what I like to do anymore. It's like, I didn't even go into this part of it, but at the same time I was doing all this, we had left Power Drive's a company I work for. They sold the hydraulics division off. And I asked them if it was okay if I started my own. So at the meantime, I had a hydraulics company I was running out of my shop.
You gotta be.
I had a buddy of mine that I grew up with from high school. I had him working for me pretty much full time out of my shop while I was gone. So like I taught him how to do hydraulics, and he started building these systems for me while I was gone traveling. So, and it was all the time. Like I was never home.
And you were selling these hydraulic systems to your former clients that you were with
No, well, kind of a former client. It was that's a whole other crazy thing. So like I had this hydraulics company. We were building like these power units. It was mainly for one company. I was like a contractor. They would contract me to build them their systems, and then they'd sell them to their customer. But like I was doing power units for all different sorts, like natural gas. I was building stuff for SpaceX. So like
no shit.
When SpaceX first started really getting big and launching rockets all the time, these power units were built were for the fuel lift stations. They would actually they would pump fuel to the rocket to lift the launch pad.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it was the early years of SpaceX when they were still failing quite a bit, like they were blowing stuff up. And I'll never forget, we did 4 of these units, and I was overseas somewhere working. I was with a customer somewhere, and I get a phone call. They're like, "Hey, we need 4 more of those units." And I was like, "Oh no, what happened? Like, was that do something wrong?" They're like, "No." They're like, "Did you see the rocket launch last weekend?" And I was like, "No, I didn't really look at it." And he's like, "Oh, it blew up and it took all those units you built out. Like it wiped them out. So like we need 4 more." So,
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey, yeah, that's all right." So, but like, yeah, so I was doing all that, and then the power drive stuff. I wasn't really getting to do anything like I like to do, because like when I was younger, when I was like 18, 19, I built a chopper, like a full-blown chopper. And I loved doing that stuff. I just didn't have time for it. Like I couldn't fab anymore. I couldn't build anymore. I had a nice shop at home. I couldn't really
utilize it.
On being here.
Yeah. And I started like finding myself like going more and more down the corporate path. Like I had all those big meetings, and I was going out to these super fancy dinners and taking all these high-end clients out and stuff. And don't get me wrong, it was fun for a while, but like, I'm at this point, I'm doing this for years and years now. And it's like starting to get kind of monotonous. And it's like, that's not who I am. I was raised by like a dirty old biker. And that's, and not to sound like mean or anything, but I'm just like not a corporate guy. And I had to be that guy. And I had to kind of like put that facade on, and it, like, you just kind of start wearing at me, the corporate life, the mentality. I just got to a place where, living in a hotel room wasn't fun anymore.
Sean, let me ask you this. Was it because at this point in time, you're not really getting to utilize your creative juices? You're more schmoozing and trying to sign contracts than you are creating and inventing and it seems like just hearing a short part of this story is that's where your juices flow.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I didn't even know it. When you're in it, you don't really realize it. Of
course.
But it's definitely what stemmed, it started like compounding, and I was getting more and more unhappy. I wasn't like I was successful, but I wasn't like satisfied. It's a weird place to be in. So
hey, and whether or not you were grown up by old dirty biker, whatever the case you said is, it doesn't even matter. It just shows your amazing skill levels, in my opinion. Whether it doesn't matter where you come from or who grew you up, but here you are not only inventing and creating and doing stuff, but you're also in the corporate boardroom sitting with these high so-called executives, signing deals, man. So that's just kudos to you, brother, that you can fit into any situation. You just chose to go down the road of your passion instead of the money side.
Yeah, and that's where it came from, and obviously my wife, she was really pushing me to do something else. She saw how, miserable I started becoming, and just the effects it was taking on me living on the road, and, just being in the airplane all the time and stuff. And
were you married at this point, or how old were you when you got married?
I was 25 when I got married. So I was married. I got married in 2013.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we had been married for a while at this point. So, it just, it was just like this whole thing. It was like a perfect storm how this all happened. You know, I'm very lucky. It's like I've always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, and my stars always kind of aligned for me in this weird way. Because the next thing that really happened was COVID hit.
Right.
So, you know, it's 2020, the whole world shuts down, and I stopped flying. You know, it was like they were like, oh, you can't go anywhere. My boss called me and goes, hey, I'll never forget this. I was out in Kansas City, Missouri working, and I had been flying when the world shut down. And they're like, hey, you got to get back home. So I get back home, and I'm like, this is crazy. They're not doing this. And they did. And I was just like, whoa. But I get back home, and my boss calls me and goes, you can't come into the office, which I was never there anyway, but he's like, don't come in the office for a couple of weeks because the people are worried you might have this COVID thing or whatever because you're flying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And little did I know I would never go back ever. So,
Well, I don't know.
yeah, it was nuts. Like I get this thing like, hey, don't come in for 2 weeks because you have to quarantine. So I stayed home for 2 weeks. I couldn't fly anywhere. I couldn't go see customers. So I'm like just doing everything I can from home to like try to keep their stuff moving. Cause like at this time, I was building this really big account. We were like just getting ready to launch this whole new thing, and it was like really taking off, and it just stalled, you know. So
Man, that sucks.
I was like, okay, I won't come in. So I didn't come in, and I was like, this is weird. And then next thing you know, like they shut the office down, and then all of a sudden, like 6 months later, Power Drive's like, hey, we're gonna sell this office. It's gone. Like we're gonna shut this whole plant down, and we're gonna consolidate everything to our headquarters in Buffalo. And they're like, we're only going to keep 3 employees from that office. And it was myself, Kevin, and Brad, the 3 guys I told you about.
3 guys, yep.
Yeah, man, they kept like a couple of the accountant ladies too, because they were really good at what they did. But everybody else in that entire plant that I had worked at for the last 12, 14 years or whatever, they lost their job, you know. So it was like, this is like crazy, you know. And you know, this is at the height of me wanting to kind of do something else anyway. So with all this going on, I had been in this time frame where shut down for COVID. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to use this time to like start doing something I want to do, you know? So I started building a bike. So I was like, you know, I haven't built a bike in a long time. I want to start building a bike again. So Kevin and all them guys, they were into bikes too. My buddy Kevin I worked with. And they were all big into FXRs and stuff. And I always liked old stuff. You know, at the time, all I had was a 1970 FLH shovelhead, and I had bought that when I had just started working at Power Drive, so I still was kind of broken and had a lot of money. The guy that I bought that bike from, it was my stepdad's, one of his best friends. He had a heart problem; he couldn't ride anymore, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to sell this bike. Do you want it?" So I came over and looked at it, and I'm like, I'd love to get it. I think it was $4,500, and at the time, I was like buying my house and everything, and I didn't have a lot of money. You know, I'm like 25. So he ended up selling this bike to me in payments. And
Sweet.
It was so cool. So he let me pay him in payments, and then he would just write me a little hand receipt, like how much I paid him that day. And I was working a bunch of overtime and stuff. So I'd pay him like $600-$700 a week, whatever I could do. And he would write me a little hand receipt. So I did this for, you know, a few weeks and got the bike paid off. And I went and picked it up, and he like cried when I picked it up. He called the bike Flowy.
Man.
Yeah, and I still to this day I have the bike. Obviously, I'll never get rid of it. I always tell everybody I'll be buried.
It's your
with
first
it, right?
bike,
But,
man, of course.
yeah, first one I ever bought myself. Yeah, and so I got that bike, and I still have all the little paper receipts he wrote me from making payments.
Killer, man, that's cool.
With the bike. And in 2015, I took the bike because it wasn't original at all. So I took the bike and I took it all the way down, and I made it as original as I could. Kevin's brother, Brian, he's a fantastic painter. He paints all of my stuff. Anything you see that I build, that Brian paints it. He does all my paint work.
Wow,
But,
he is amazing.
yeah, so he painted my bike, and then I rode that to Sturgis with those guys in 2015. Rode all the way out there and back. And then my work stuff really started taking off, like I was just talking about, and I couldn't really do a lot of that stuff anymore. So when COVID hit, I'm like, I'm going to build this FXR because all these guys are riding these FXRs. And I had like the old stuff, but they were like, oh yeah, let's get you into this FXR stuff. So I'm like, yeah, I'll try it. So I started building this bike. And obviously I can't leave anything alone. I always have to try to do weird stuff. So I got an 82 FXR, first year FXR. It was in a flood. And Kevin had originally bought the bike. I went with him to get it. It flooded in the basement. And the story of this bike's so sad because it could have been a really crazy bike, but it was a flood bike. It was buried underwater, like not all the way, just like to the bottom of the cases, but the guy just let it sit, and it was brand new. He only put 1,500 miles on the bike. He put it in his basement, and the basement flooded, and just let it sit there, and the whole thing just rested to heck. And Kevin bought this bike for $1,000. And it took me like 3 years, but I talked him into finally selling it to me. So like during COVID, he'd sold it to me. And I bought it back from him for $1,001 because he's like, I got to make money on it.
Yeah.
So I bought that, and I was like kind of going back and forth because it had a brand new, essentially 1,500 mile bike, but it was so rusty, it was so gone. I had to like strip it down. So I took the shovel head out of it, put a twin cam power plant in it. I didn't want to run anything stock. I wanted to make custom everything. So started designing with Kevin. We made our own brake system. I put full Takiko brakes on it. We made our own brake rotors, put a giant 15-inch rotor on the front.
No shit.
Put all Legend suspension in it. And then the rear swing arm, I didn't want to run a stock swing arm, so I made one. And I fattened up the rear swing arm for it. And when I was taking all this stuff as I was doing it down to a powder coat shop locally here from my house. And the guy's name's Paul. And Paul was like, I started taking all these motorcycle parts, and he's like, who's making this stuff? And I was like, I'm doing it. He's like, what, you're doing this? He's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he couldn't believe I was making these motorcycle parts. He starts like telling his brothers about me. And at this time, I didn't know like who his brothers were. You know, I just know he's a powder coat guy. So I'm like taking them all stuff during COVID, building this bike. And I found out his brother's name. His brother's name's Tom Banks. He's Paul Banks, Tom Banks. There's 5 brothers. And Tom lives down in Pittsburgh, but Tom has this massive motorcycle museum in Pittsburgh. He's a collector. And I'm down at Paul's one day because Paul and I were, at this time, we really hit it off. We got real close. And I had taken other stuff to him over the last couple of years. So at this time, I'd known him for about 3 years when I'm taking him all these FXR parts. And he's like asking me all these questions and like, hey, you know, he's like kind of vetting me for his brothers. Cause like he doesn't just say, hey, like these are my brothers. Like he's like almost like kind of like their gatekeeper. It's funny. So he like vetted me. I always joke around. He vetted me for like 3 years. So I finally meet one of his other brothers. His name's George, and George lives right down the road from me. He's only like 4 miles from our house. And I meet George, and George has got this magazine, Cycle Source magazine, Chris and Heather's magazine. And he's got, you know, they open it up and it's got Tom in there, and he's sitting on a 1947 knucklehead bobber that they call the Jinx 13.
Was that Cannonball?
No, not yet. So this is, this is how it all gets into it. So
yeah,
I see this picture of Tom when I was 47. I'm like, oh man, that's badass. You know, knucklehead. I love the old stuff. I just could never really get into it, you know, because like the old stuff, it's funny. It's like people think it's unobtainable, but once you break the barrier and get into that world, it's much more realistic than you think. You just have to know the people. It's all about connections in the antique world. So finally, I'm out driving around one day. This is, you know, a few months later. Still, you know, world's shut down. Everything's crazy. I have a 68 F100, a little hot rod pickup that I had built, and I'm out cruising this back road to take parts to Paul, and I'm going down the road, and I see this old bike come launching up to a stop sign right down the road from my house. Now, I do a double take because I'm like, that's not a normal Harley. That's old, right, you know? So I look to the left, and I see this thing. It's all white, and then there's a van behind him, and it says Cannonball on it. And I'm like, oh, no way. I was like, I bet that's Tom and George. So sure as shit, I go by him, and Tom's sitting on this bike, and it's a 36 BLH. And I'm like, oh, man, that thing sticks. So they're out riding. I'm not going to bother them. You know, I'm not that guy. So I turn and go down to Paul's to drop these parts off. And I'm like, hey, I think I just saw your brothers. And then they come rolling up right into Paul's shop. And, you know, they're on this 36 BLH, and I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I'm looking at the bike. I'm like going all over it. And, you know, they invite me down to George's house. They're like, hey, well, you want to come hang out or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So mind you, I had a wedding to go to on this particular day. I was supposed to go to this guy's wedding from work. So
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come hang out, you know, and my wife just thought I was going down to drop off parts. Well, hours go by. I walk into the door and there's a 1912 belt drive Harley single sitting there. And I lose my
Damn.
mind. I'm like, oh my
Damn.
God. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, this is stuff that, like, you know, dreams are made of, you know? So I hit it off with these guys. And by the time I left that show over at George's house on the road, it had been like 4 hours. I had missed the wedding. My wife's like ready to kill me, you know, because like I didn't show up. But they invited me to go on the Cannonball with them. So I just met them, like within like, you know, 4 hours. They're asking me to go on this Cannonball and be a mechanic with them and stuff. So
Paul greased the wheels, man.
yeah, it was like just absolute, when I say stars align, that's what I mean. It's just like crazy timing, you know? So yeah, from that point, I'll always say it. So like from that day till now, my life has been an absolute whirlwind. Like it's not like we have never let off the gas since that day. It's been so crazy. It's like, I try telling her, you know, I've told the story a few different times on some different shows and stuff, but it's like every day it's just crazy. But I got home, my wife was super mad at me and I was like laughing. I'm like, you know what? I was like, you can be mad, but I was like, I just met these guys and I was like, I literally told her, I was like, I think my life's going to change. And she's like, whatever, like, let's get ready. We are going to the reception, you know?
Hey, so you knew that moment your life was going to change?
I knew it. I was like, it was something, it was so weird, man. I was like, we just hit it off so well, Paul and George, you know, and Tom. I was like, man, I said, when they asked me to go with them, I'm like, something's going on here. I was like, this is not normal, you know? So, I ended up not only going on the Cannonball, they wanted me to be a mechanic, but within that 2 weeks, so we only had like 3 or 4 weeks of that time to get ready for the Cannonball. Like we're scrambling. We had the 1912, we had a 1913 twin, and then Tom had another 1913 single that he wanted to get ready. And he's like, hey, I'm going to put you on that bike. I want you to ride with us.
Yeah.
So I was like, holy cow. So I went from being like a mechanic to like, oh, now we want you to ride with us. So we all just dove in, got these bikes as ready as we could. We literally had like 5 miles on all the bikes before we went in. If you guys are familiar with the Cannonball, it's like a, you know, a 3,000 mile ride across country. So
yep.
We were absolutely nuts.
On a 33, on a 1933 or before, right?
Before 13. Yeah. So we had 2 13s and a 1912.
With only 5 miles of test drive on them?
Yeah.
Damn.
5 miles.
That's ballsy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely crazy. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna be fine. Well, we weren't fine. We got our butts kicked, but
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
It was fun. It was like diving in head first and just kind of learning. Like the first night, I was rebuilding motors till like 2 a.m. We had blown up 2 motors on the very first day.
Gosh,
George's 13 twin and come apart. Like we're putting it back together. Like just crazy stuff, you know. But that was like trial by fire. And that's like a month long. So I really I lived with these guys for a month and wrenched with them for a month. And got to really know them real well. Get home from that trip, you know, at this time, I'm still working at Power Drives.
Right.
I get home from that trip and it was so funny because like it was during COVID times. It was like such a weird, it was a 2021. So it was like kind of winding down, but everything was still kind of weird, you know? And I'm like taking meetings over headset and stuff, like while I'm working on bikes and stuff, because we didn't have an office to go to. So it was just a weird time. But anyways, we get home from the Cannonball. Tom calls me, like literally just got home. We were together for a month. He goes, hey, you want to go down to Florida? We're going to go. I want to go see the Sons of Speed race. It's like vintage sport track racing. Oh, yeah. And what Tom didn't realize is I have been a board track guy since I was a kid. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if it's the bikes or what, but I've always been obsessed with like vintage board track racing. I've always had pictures. I did research on it from a young age. And when I was in 2015, I'd gone down to Wheel Street Time Museum when Dale was still alive.
Aggie Valley.
And I went and saw all the bikes down there. It was my first time there. Dale was alive. He actually greeted us when we got there. It was really cool. I was super excited about that. And I went to the board track exhibit. I spent like all my time in the board track exhibit. I was like taking pictures. And so when he asked me to go down to Sons of Speed, I was like, heck yeah, man, that's awesome. So we go down there. This is October. The Cannonball ended in September, so it's only a month later. We're down there, and we're watching the races. He looks at me like, "Hey, do you want to get into this?" And I'm like, "Dude, you don't have to ask me twice. Like, I'm down. You know, this vintage board track racing is like my dream. You know." So he's like asking me to get into it. I'm like, "Yeah, well, let's do that." So he's like, we watch the races. We get all excited. We're like, "Yeah, we're going to start looking and building bikes and getting ready to race down there." So he's on his way home. In the meantime, I keep going south. I'm going south to the Keys because I promised my wife I'd take her on a vacation since I've been gone for a month, you know. So I was taking her to the Keys, and on the way to the Keys, my phone rings again. It's Tom again. He's like, "Hey," I'm like, "What's up, man? Like, I just left you." And he's like, "Hey, I just got word that this company's coming up for sale, Competition Distributing. You know, it's been around since the 60s. You know, the guy wants to get out of it, but if you're interested, I would like you to come in on it with me. And, you know, let's go out and talk to this guy." And I'm like, holy cow. You know, I was like, this is all happening. Like I said, this is like less than 2 months. It's like from the time I met him to this point. So I was just like, I was overwhelmed. Like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So the rest of my vacation, I couldn't even think about vacation. I was like thinking about getting home.
Your poor wife, man.
Yeah, I know.
She's a
like,
trooper.
I don't keep thinking with getting home there. Like, no, because as soon as I got home, we got on a plane and flew to South Dakota to go meet Laurie and look at the company. Yeah. So drive home, get on a plane, fly out there, sit down with Laurie, did a handshake deal that night. Stayed the night in Deadwood and flew back home the next day. And a month later, we drove out to South Dakota with a bunch of these big giant box trucks and bought the company and grabbed every piece of inventory and moved it back to my shop.
Really?
And, yeah. And in the meantime, I had quit my job. I said, "All right, guys, I'm done." So I left, you know, at that time I'd been there for, I think, 14 years. So it was like 13 or 14 years. I left the corporate world and I said, "Hey, let's go all in on this thing." So
Sean, can I ask you a quick question before you continue?
Yeah.
What exactly did you grab when you guys filled the trucks up to bring back to your shop? What kind of stuff did you take with you?
It was mainly inventory. So it was all of the vintage inventory. So Competition is all like 1910 to 1936 Harley-Davidson and other early American motorcycles. Like we have stuff for Henderson's, Flying Merkle, Thor, some different stuff like that. But so yeah, we grabbed a little bit of equipment too. We had some machines and stuff, but it was mainly just bulk inventory. Moved everything back here to my shop. At the time, I still had my hydraulics business. I just quit my comfy corporate job that I had, you know, made really good money. And I was like, am I crazy? Like, am I crazy? And, you know, the whole time my wife's like pushing me. She's like, "Yeah, she's like, kept saying like, this is what you should be doing." I was like, "This is what you're meant to do," you know? So, I was like, all right, you know, and don't get me wrong. I went head first into it, but I was definitely super nervous about it, you know?
Of course.
You get like a comfort zone, you know? Like I was really good at what I did. I might not necessarily liked it anymore, but, you know, it paid the bills and I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to do, you know?
Yeah.
If my wife and I want to go on vacation, I had enough sky miles, we'd fly wherever we wanted. And it was a nice lifestyle, you know?
I understand.
So we went head first into it. We get the trucks back home. It was like the week before Thanksgiving in 2021. George and Tom get out of the trucks. They're like, "All right, have fun. See you." And they left. And then I was like, holy cow. Like, that's like when reality hit. Because I was like, I got to run over all these trucks.
Yeah.
And get all this inventory set up. And there was no rhyme or reason to any of it. There was like, I had 700 some part numbers and there was no digital catalog at all.
Oh, no.
It was all, and we had to like start this website and just do everything. It was nuts. And I had a lot of help from, you know, my wife. She's really good with marketing and computer stuff. So she helped a lot with their website stuff. Right. And then Kevin came and helped me unload the truck. And I had a forklift and stuff because of my hydraulics company, so that made it easier. But we started setting up racks, and then Brian, his brother, our painter, he came over and actually physically went through every single bin for me and wrote it
Wow.
on a sheet, like the part number and everything. And then I would sit down and manually enter it into a spreadsheet and design, specify locations. Because first thing I had to do before I could open the company was put locations of parts.
Yeah.
So that I had a way to, find the parts, because I couldn't find them. So, but yeah, so that was a crazy time. That was about 4 years ago, and
Yeah.
now here we are.
Yeah. So, what were those early conversations like between you and Tom before taking this on? Like, what was the game plan? Or, I mean, it sounded like you were flying by the seat of your pants when you got back to the shop and reality hit.
Yeah, I mean that's what it was. It was all flying by the seat of our pants. It was, the thing was for us was okay. This company has a really good history. It's been around for a long time, but the problem was Lonnie was kind of toning down. Like, he was going on the downside of it. Everybody knew he was, getting ready to retire and he's going to get out of it. His son, unfortunately, had passed away in 2016. His son was going to take over the
Man.
company,
Oh, man.
Lonnie Jr. And Lonnie Jr. is the one that actually started the Cannonball. So when that happened, it kind of took the wind out of Lonnie's sails, obviously. And our goal is to keep the name and build it all back up to its former glory. And
Right.
not only that, but even make it better. Try to use new technology in our knowledge of manufacturing. That's the world I came from, was manufacturing and development. And, try to make the company grow and turn it into something more,
When you say more, Sean, take us a little bit into that discussion. Like, when you guys were sitting down and talking about, all right, now we have this company that has built a legacy in this type of a niche. And obviously there was pressure to live up to the name, the stuff that he's done in the past, even though the company was starting to kind of go down as he was winding down. What were some of the things that you were talking about as far as doing it and taking it to the next direction?
The same for us was bring back the big parts that kind of went away. Because the old events, there's actually a lot of old antique events that kind of keep these bikes going. You have things like the Cannonball, and we just started our own race called the Motorcycle Trans Am. So we're doing our own cross country race now. But we have Billy Lane Sons of Speed. That's all antique motorcycle racing. And there's some stuff in the future I want to develop. I've actually been talking with some people. I want to do a vintage hill climb event. But there's a lot, like, obviously your AMCA meets and road runs and stuff. So these bikes still get ridden. And our thing is keep parts flowing for them. If you can't find them, we have them. Or if guys necessarily don't have a complete bike, which a lot of these bikes, the rest of the bike's gone, but the motor's there. Because they would scrap everything else in the early days, but they'd leave the motors because they would repurpose motors for air compressors or water pumps or anything you can imagine. Because back in the day, poverty, they didn't have a choice. They had to get creative. So there's a ton of old stuff still out there. So my thing was, I want to build this to a point where you could just come to us. It's a one-stop shop. You can get a frame, you can get your sheet metal, you can get anything you want. You can to build your bike. Or if you don't even have a bike and you just want to start building a bike, you can still come to us, because not only can you get all that other stuff, but you can even get a motor, you can get, engine components, all that. So the last 4 years, that's all I've been doing, is adding components, getting more into the racing scene and the performance stuff, like vintage performance. And bringing chassis and sheet metal and big ticket items that are harder to find in decent shape, and allows people to kind of wiggle their way and to start building these vintage bikes,
Sean, I had a question about that though. So you've honored the past, and you honored the legacy of the company and also the bikes themselves, but you've also brought in modern solutions like metal, additive 3D printing, additive manufacturing. When do you, or how do you decide when it's time to modernize and when it's time to stick with the old school methods?
So that was cut and clear actually for me real quick, because I went into this doing as much of the old school way as I could.
Mm.
And the first major project I took on, other than just like individual components and stuff, was I was reincorporating what we call a 3-bar hill climber. So a 3-bar hill climber is a factory only race chassis that Harley produced in 27, like an FHA C style 2-cam motor, and they only produced in 4 factory race bikes. So I actually got from a good friend of mine the wood patterns that Lonnie had developed earlier on, and I had all the wood patterns. So I started making molds and pouring them by wax and taking them to the foundry, and I was doing it all and showing the process and trying to do it the old school way and cast them. And I found out really quick, I said, this is not the way to do this, because for one, foundries don't like dealing with low volume customers.
Right.
They want big numbers.
Right.
They're not fast, like especially if you're low volume, you're going to get put on the back burner until they get to it.
Right.
And then when you do get it, finally, after months and months or whatever the time frame is, depending on what you're doing, you still have to machine everything, because it just comes in as a solid chunk of whatever.
Right.
Unless you're going even further ahead and building an investment casting, which those are, for one investment cast pattern, you're looking at $20,000 to $30,000.
Yeah.
It's just not, financially
Practical.
worth it.
Feasible, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's not enough people into this stuff that are going to buy those kind of things. So my mind starts working. At this point, Kevin, my buddy Kevin I was telling you about, he's still working at Power Drives. So on the side, I bought him a laptop, and then I paid for some seats for design software we use at Power Drives. And on the side, I started sending him stuff, and then I would be working on stuff here, and we'd start going back and forth and coming up with some different ideas.
What did you use, just out of curiosity?
What, for design software?
Yeah.
We use SolidWorks for everything.
SolidWorks, cool.
Yeah, we use SolidWorks. And I actually just recently started messing with I've been playing with Shaper too. One of my good buddies uses Shaper a lot, so I've been using that. But
Thanks.
So we started doing that, and we started outsourcing components. Like first I started printing, because we had gotten into printing at Power Drives a little bit. We had our own printer. It was all polymer stuff. And I knew about metal additive, so we started outsourcing some metal additive parts, and I'd never seen it before. I just knew it existed. So started sending some files and models out and started getting parts back. And I'm like, holy cow, these things are super nice. Like this is a different level than even I thought that we could do with this stuff. So I started realizing all the different materials you could print with metal additive. So I just started beelining towards this thought of, okay, we got to invest in this. Like this is our next step, because you're not, with metal additive, you're not limited to that mold or that part or that specific product. Like if you buy some of these machines, like a swedging machine or something, you can only make that thing on that machine. Like this machine, there's no limitations.
What kind of machine was it?
So we bought a large metal additive printer. So it's a laser powder bed fusion machine.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're not limited to that, like very specific vertical only serious support kind of issues. That's cool.
Yeah. So we have a very large build plate. We can actually, like, you can go through our Instagram and stuff and see, but like I can print entire frame casting packs on one plate. We do heads, we do cylinder heads, we do cylinders, we do engine cases, we do rods.
Cool.
Anything you can imagine, we use it because we can print 46 different types of material. So like we primarily focus in aluminum, titanium, and stainless. 316. It's like a powder blend.
Yep.
So we do all that different stuff. But I started seeing the benefits of that. So every year we were growing competition just a little, slightly. Our numbers were going up. And then I talked Tom into bringing Kevin on full time with us. So Kevin, I sniped, Kevin from Power Drive. So now he's full time with us as well. And then, so it's just myself and Kevin doing all this stuff. And then, I talked him into this metal additive is the future. We need to really start getting into this, because the other thing is that nobody really realizes is metal additive is still not known pretty much at all outside of the aerospace and hypercar and big time player manufacturing. So like when I started showing us doing this stuff, people are like losing their minds. They're like, what do you do? You know, like they just can't believe it. And it's like, they're like, oh, is it strong? And it's not, it's going to break. And I'm like, no, you guys don't understand. Like this is the future of manufacturing. It's stronger than traditional methods.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this for like the last 15 years. So you just never heard about it because nobody can talk about it because it's all aerospace and top secret stuff. So nobody's out there putting videos on the internet.
That's right.
Printing aerospace parts, you know? So
That's killer.
we're kind of like the first, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a couple other companies out there, but we're kind of the first company to really show the nitty gritty side of the additive metal because a lot of it you can't really talk about yet. So it's been a really interesting ride. We actually got the machine set up about 7 months ago now. You know, I put an addition on my shop. We had to build a whole lab and area for it and everything. So that was like a whole nother deal that last year pretty much consumed, but got it all set up. It was a huge learning curve for us. Obviously, it took me quite a while to figure out how to make parts successfully. Cause like once they drop the machine off and show you how to operate the machine, you're on your own. You're like, here you go, like have fun with that. So another learning experience.
Yeah.
But once we got it figured out, it's been awesome. You know, it's like, I can make stuff right here in the shop. I have customers call. I did, you know, we'll do other things too, other than motorcycle parts. Like I did some stuff for a guy on Instagram. He reached out to me. He was like, hey, can you make this stuff for, you know, this part for my company? So I'm like, yeah, I don't care. It's not biased to motorcycle parts. I can make whatever you want. And I made him stuff. And then I made a guy the other day in Australia. I made him some supercharger components.
No shit.
Printed him. And because like, I'm showing the stuff that we're doing, and it's like giving people ideas like, oh, I can do this. It's like a lot of people now can design, you know, CAD is not like a professional only thing anymore. You know, kids are getting into it. So
yeah, with Tinkercad, there's free software where my 11-year-old can design like mind-blowing stuff on a browser-based CAD program. It's crazy.
Yeah, and see, like he can design that stuff, and now you can make it. You know, and it's like it's obtainable. You don't have to have these crazy machines, and especially on the polymer side, you can 3D print really cool stuff with like plastic machines and everything else. So
that's right. That's right. Sean, let me ask you this: what's one of the most difficult builds or restoration challenges you've faced with competition distributing, like something that really kind of tested you, but you know, you had to really get it out there and it worked out, ended up working out. What's some of the difficult things that you've run across?
Well, it's kind of everything we do. Cause anytime like I take on a build for like a show or an event or anything, I always try to like kind of push myself out of the comfort zone. I look up to, there's a lot of guys in this thing that I look up to, you know, and inspiration over the years and stuff. And I feel like if you're comfortable and you're like, oh, I know how to do this, then you're not doing it. I'm not saying you're not doing it right. It just, this is just the way I look at myself. If I'm not uncomfortable and I'm not pressured in some kind of way, I'm not happy with what I'm doing. Because I just feel like to get to that next level and to learn something new, you have to like push yourself, you know? So, for me, it's like anytime I take something on, like if like my last year's build with Born Free, I did that, the Pennsylvania 8, we did that in the 8 valve and built that entire engine from nothing, you know? So, the frame, the chassis, every component on that we made. And, that bike was extremely stressful because what I usually do, and it keeps me locked into like what I say I'm going to do, is I'll go out and make the announcement of what I'm going to build right off the bat. And I'll lock myself into it so that I can't redact on what I'm doing. Cause otherwise, hold yourself accountable. Cause like I'm trying to really hold myself to a level of like, hey, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Otherwise it's like, what are you doing it for? You know? So
how do you come to that conclusion though? Like, you know, because you already kind of know what your vision is, before you really even, or like, how does that work with you? I mean, your mind is brilliant. So I'm just curious to find out, when you lock yourself in before you even start anything, how does that work?
It's weird for me. So like I have the next like 3 bikes already ready to go, like planned out. Like it's like when I'm building one, when I get halfway through it, I'm already on to the next one, right?
No shit. Damn.
Like when I was doing the first like major competition I did in bike building scene, I guess, was my panhead, the inertia panhead that I did. And that bike was extremely complex, and Kevin and I designed and built that entire bike from scratch. And then Tom's brother George, it was a 48 panhead platform. It was for Biltwell, the People's Champ.
The Biltwell's
People's Champ. And it's like everything on California is kind of like a chopper show, and I always try to do something different. Like, don't get me wrong, I love choppers. I still have the mini bike chopper I was telling you guys about. It's still upstairs in my shop here.
Cool to see, man.
Yeah, it's like with my terrible paint job from when I was 10. I like, when I was on that bike, I was like, all right, we have to go completely different with this. And that entire bike, I planned out in my head in a hotel room in Idaho. I was stuck in Idaho for like 5-6 days from a previous build. And I ended up was like, I'm going to put an inertia starter on a motorcycle. I'm like, I don't know why I want to do it. I just want to do it. I thought it'd be cool. I always liked inertia starters. I thought they were really badass the way they sounded. And I'm like, but I want to do it so it's aesthetically pleasing. It's got to be functional. It's got to be rideable. Mm-hmm. And for Biltwell, you have to ride your bike 50 miles anyway to get to the show to be qualified to do it. So that bike was a challenge because we went completely non-traditional with the frame. I did an entire frame out of sheet metal, all 304 stainless sheet plate, laser cut CNC bent, and then had to assemble it all. I did all the standoffs, and then we incorporated the inertia starter into it, had to come up with all the gearing to fire the bike at the correct ratio, because I was originally going to run a magneto on it. We didn't run a magneto on it because I couldn't get one in the time frame that I needed it. And the front end, I always revert back to antique aesthetics. So like they had the reverse trailing link hill climber style front end that we fabbed here, did all that stuff here. So that, but when I got to the point where I knew I wasn't adding anything else to that bike, like I just had to finish that bike, I was already planning the next one. Like the Pennsylvania 8 was already, going through my head, and I was like, hey, the thing for me is I just have to pull the trigger and say, am I going to do it? What am I going to do it for? Because like anytime I try to do this now, time is so valuable.
Yeah.
And especially running like a tiny little company like this and being a one guy show at the shop itself, you have to like really pick and choose your battles. So it's got to benefit you in some way, and you got to use it to promote your brand or what you're doing. So,
hey guys, the show will be back in 1 minute right after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, One Gang, tired of feeling like your butt's taking more of a beating than your bike on those long rides? Introducing Butt Buffer, the ultimate solution to saddle soreness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. These cushions are made from medical-grade viscoelastic polymer, scientifically crafted to eliminate pressure points and keep your circulation flowing. No more numb nuts or numb butts. And here's the best part. Butt Buffer cushions are made right here in the US for the last 30 years. From Harleys to Hondas, we've got a cushion to fit your ride perfectly. Plus, with styles ranging from sleek pebble polymer to luxurious sheepskin, there's a Butt Buffer for every rider's style. Get your Butt Buffer today at buttbuffer.com. That's buttbuffer.com. Your butt will thank you, and you'll ride longer and happier. We've got your butt covered.
Sean, I wanted to ask you real quick. Sorry to interrupt, but like Competition Distributing is one of the, in our opinion, one of the coolest companies on the planet. You said your stars align. Your stars align. You're in the right place at the right time. I don't know if there could be a better person at the helm of this company. Your mind is insane. And you've said before, from mind to paper and from paper to reality, that's your favorite part. How specifically do you continue to challenge yourself? You've mentioned staying out of your comfort zone, and now you're talking about brainstorming on the next bike. Do you have a process behind this, or is it just kind of natural for you?
It's weird. Like I said, it's so weird because it's like, for me, I always just thought it was like a normal thing, and like when I started doing this in the view of other people, like when I started bringing other people in, like, cause I didn't even have social media until like 5 years ago. I just started doing it recently. Once I started bringing other people in and like listening to them talk and be like, man, you're the way you do things is crazy. Like you're out of the world, and it's like, I didn't really ever think that, it's like, cause I guess that's the way I am or whatever. But for me, what I'll do is I'll usually start with drawing, conceptualize on paper. That's one of my favorite things is I'll get it laid out on paper. I'll if I have like a crazy idea or if I want to try to pull something off that I think is going to be challenging, I'll consult with Kevin on it. I'll say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is how I want it to work. And then, he'll get to work on like figuring out like, let's do it this way. And then we'll brainstorm back and forth. But what I usually do is like one of my favorite things is I like to see things. Like I've never been good at like I read and stuff, but like when I read, it doesn't like go into my mind like it does when I'm seeing things. So and for me, I've been using a lot of like life size like layout, and you guys probably saw some of the videos. Like I like to chalk draw.
Yeah, you lay the engine down and then draw around.
Yeah, and with the Pennsylvania Heat, I used that method. That it worked out really great for that bike because I wanted to make that bike as old school as I could. Because I went from like the panhead was like all major CAD work, and I wanted to flip the bill, and I wanted to do it all super old school and hand like on the Pennsylvania Heat, like they would have done back in the day. So I had a mock-up motor. I made cylinders. And I bought some stuff from Billy Lane, and he sold me these old Rudge heads and cylinders and stuff. And I ended up changing the cylinders on. So I made a new set of cylinders, and then I took the old Rudge head and I laid them down and laid the cases down, and I just drew around it. And that kind of showed me what I was going for style wise. So I was able to make changes of that because like I take huge inspiration from board track bikes and old bikes, antique stuff in their designs, because that's what I always try to tell people. Like, if you think what I'm doing is cool, go look at a real old school bike, like from the teens and even earlier. Look at the linkages and look at how they used to make things happen from point A to point B and how they got to it. Because stuff that they're doing now, don't get me wrong, it's amazing. Like CNC stuff, the bikes the guys are building are crazy, but I have massive appreciation for mechanical things. So like the more complex and the more difficult to make a simple task happen, it's functional. That's the way I like to go after it, So that's kind of what inspires me. And that's like where I get my design aspects from, is the old bikes, because stuff that people think that didn't exist or wasn't obtainable, they were doing 100 years ago.
That's right.
I don't care what you say, and you'll never tell me otherwise. People were just downright smarter back in the day. They had a different way of doing things, and they can make things happen. And it's, for me, that's where everything
that's
comes
right.
from.
They didn't have computers to help them do anything, man. Everything was hand to paper, man, and proper things. Hey, let's go back to touch on a little bit of the things we just talked about. June 2023, you dropped some jaws with the aviation inspired panhead at the Built Well People's Champ show. Then you showed up at the Born Free 14, kind of as a rising force, won the $10,000 prize there. Okay, I wanted to just ask you, one is, what was your feeling going into that with all the competition and your first time? And two is, going into Born Free 15, you were invited back again. Now you're no longer the underdog, right? What was the difference between the two shows? Take the audience into the 2023 year coming in, and then after coming back to Born Free 15, what the difference was for you?
It was huge. So my first real major bike that I did on social media was the Pan Am FXR. That was the first major challenge. I went and bought a brand new Pan Am because Harley wouldn't sell me just the engine. It was too new at that point. Completely gutted the bike and put it in an FXR chassis and everything else. And that bike was fun, but as I was doing it, I just really wasn't into it. I did it because I wanted to challenge myself. I did it because it was like it was an FXR art show I was building for. But like halfway through that whole build, I was actually kind of just like wanted to get out of it. Like I wanted to be done with it. I wasn't into it. So I told myself from that day forward, I was like, from everything I do here on out, I want to be fully committed and into it. Like it's going to be what I want to do. You know, it's not going to be to try to make this show or do that. So that was like my first major learning experience in the whole build thing. So coming in to build well at People's Champ, that was like, for me, that was one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life, because it was like, I was we have to, you know, Josh and their crew, they run an amazing event there. You know, they make you post, you have to do updates, you have to do this, you have to follow, they have a deadline. You know, Josh is ex-military. He has a discipline, a way of laying things out, and very disciplined. And I really admire that, because it makes their event better. You know, it makes it well known, and it makes it like, you know, a really good thing for them and for the people that are doing it. But, with that being said, that was the first time I had to do updates and had to really show people how I was building something and putting myself like through that whole stage. And again, I really challenged myself, because I was building this super untraditional bike that had this weird starter on it that I didn't know if it was going to work. I found this starter on an airplane. It was a P40 Warhawk off eBay. Cool. I asked the guy if it works. He goes, dude, I don't know. He's like, I don't have a plane to start it with. And that was the first thing I bought for the whole bike. I had the
crazy. You built everything around that. Damn.
Yeah, literally. It was the entire bike had to be designed around that thing, because it's this big honking starter. So I got this thing in the mail. It came into my shop. I strapped it in my chain vise because it's got so much torque on it. And I put this bar, I bent, you know, I started winding this thing up, and it was like an air raid siren. It was so loud. I was like, this is awesome. You know, I was like super pumped. I posted just a video of me doing that, and everybody was like, whoa, that's crazy, you know? And I was like, this is fun, you know? But as I was going through that competition, I started asking myself more and more, I'm like, what am I doing, you know? Because the other thing I found out with social media, because at this time I'm still really new to it, is when you're putting everything out there and you're doing all this stuff, not everybody necessarily tends to agree with you. Like I was getting like a bunch of flack, and I was getting people like saying stuff, and you know, in me, I'm a kind of guy. It's like, you know, I always try to like, you know, I try to be respectful. I try to do, you know, best I can. And it's like, man, some of these guys are getting real mad about this. So that was like an eye opener for me. I was like, okay, social media isn't all
that it's cracked up to be. That's right. That's for sure, bro. That's for sure.
And when you're kind of putting everything out there, you kind of find out real quick that, you know, it's not all going to be positive. So between that and the deadline and having to keep on track with it, that show was extremely stressful. Then you have to, like, there's 2 stages to it. You have like a top 20, which you get picked for. I got picked for that, got announced. And then they do a second round. I think it was like top 6 or whatever. And you're the ones that get into the final show. And it's still not over. You still got another judging thing after that. So the top 6 thing, you have to have a bike as far along as you can to give people another reason to vote for you. So like I was really stressing to get the bike into a roller. Got the bike into a roller as much as I could. I didn't have enough time to get the real front end fab for it, because I was doing it all at a high end, like stainless, and polishing it. And I was doing it all here by hand and manual. You know, I didn't have enough time. So what I did was to get it into a roller photo to try to get into that next round to make it look as complete as I could, to show people your vision. I fabbed up a complete mock-up front end that looked just like that one.
Yeah.
So I just did it all out of steel. So, and I fabbed it all up, and I like whipped through it just to get it into a roller. So I did all that, and got voted into the second, the final round. And I was, you know, obviously very, very excited about that. And once we got in, then it's like stress is really on, because now you got to finish the bike. The bike's got to run. You got to be able to ride the bike. And once you get to the show, you park on your platform, and then your job's over. Now it's all up to the people. They're voting. And that was like the key where now you can take a breather. So for me, it was the entire length of that show. and not knowing if my bike's going to even run, if it's going to start the way I intended it to start, because I was hoping the inertia starter would work the way we set it up. We didn't know. And the craziest thing ever happened with that bike, and I never expected it, and even to this day, it's kind of crazy to think about. Though, like that one video that you see, I'm like wearing like a blue t-shirt, and I go out there with this guy. I took a piece of conduit and I just bent it real quick because I didn't have time to fab a handle. I was so excited to try starting the bike. I put that piece of conduit in there, and I fire, I crank this thing and I pull the switch, and the bike fires off that inertia starter for the first time. And that video was legitimately my first time doing it.
That's sweet.
Gosh, man.
It was like, we posted it online, and it went nuts. Like, it just went absolutely nuts. Like, to this day, like the one Kevin posted it on his account, I posted on my account, and then we posted on YouTube, or started a YouTube channel, and it just went like ultra viral. It was like 70 or 80 million views, 90 million views. It was like, it just went around. I started getting all these phone calls and all these magazines, and it's like, I was just like, what just happened? Like, I didn't expect any of that. So
did that change everything?
It kind of did, because there was like, it went from me just being like a bike builder to like now, like I'm going and stuff. Like when I go places, people will be like, hey man, like I see,
right.
It was the biggest eye opener. I was flying through an airport one day, and I was like walking through an airport, which I've done for years, and somebody came up and was like, oh dude, you're the guy from that video. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he's like, oh, your bike, that their inertia starter, so it was just crazy, people really dug the inertia starter. They thought that was cool. Did the show, the 50-mile ride. They start you right up a mountain and go down the other side of the mountain into Cook's Corner there, and you follow Josh on his chopper, and there's like 6 of us. And that was like the night before that, drove all the way to California. I was nuts, man. I was almost like sick to my stomach, because like for me, I didn't win until I made it to that platform. I didn't care if I won. Like, obviously it was nice to win, but I didn't care if I won. I just wanted to make it there. Like, that was my thing.
Yeah.
Because I had no time to test the bike again. It was right down to the wire, because I'm always pushing stuff so freaking far that like it makes it challenging to get these complex things done in time. And like the week before I loaded the bike, because I had dual carbs on it, and I had dual linkers, and they were facing out to the front of the bike. And I made we 3D printed the intake manifold out of aluminum, and it was all like crazy geometry and everything. I couldn't get the carbs to dial in just right, and I was like really struggling with it. So I ended up running it down to my good buddy Mike Silvio in Tennessee, like the week before we left for California. And I was like, Mike, I need help, man. Like, he's a linker master. He can really dial those things. Long story short there, he's like, oh, your carburetor, it's letting too much air by. Like, you got a bad body. So we swapped the body on the carburetor. He got it all dialed in for me and got it running good enough I could ride it. So first time I ever really rode the bike legitimately was down at his house, and I had like 4 miles on it. Loaded it up, ran it back all the way to Pennsylvania, loaded everything, then drove to California for the show. Dang. So I had never even really put more than 15 miles on the bike before I'm getting ready for a 50-mile embargo ride over this mountain, down this platform at Cook's. Took off, followed Josh and those guys. We're climbing this mountain. The bike's running really good. I'm like keeping up with them, And everybody's like, oh, you can't ride that bike. They're all talking crap, because it's like I got this chain flying by my leg, for the inertia starter. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's my leg. You're not riding it, So I'm going up this hill. Everything's going good. And all of a sudden, the bike starts sputtering. And I'm like, what the heck? I was like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm already a ball of knots and nerves and stuff. So I look down, pull over. Kevin and my buddy Connor were riding with me. They were chasing, because you're allowed to have buddies ride with you and stuff. So they're chasing us up this mountain, and they're looking down. And long story short, I didn't turn the fuel pack on. It was on, but I didn't unscrew it all the way.
No.
Yeah, so I didn't have it all the way open. So it was starving the dual carbs. So open that up, all the gas started flowing again. Like bike fired right back up, because the kick starter and inertia started. Made it down the mountain, got to the platform, got set up. Once I rolled in there and made it there, it was like a huge weight off my shoulders.
Yeah, man, I'm sure.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, it was super nice. I had a great time out there. And then the night your voting came or whatever, the the judging thing. And when they called my name, I was just like blown away. You know, I actually, I couldn't believe I won because it's a very heavy chopper inspired crew, like crowd. Everybody likes the old school style, you know, 70s, 60s style choppers and stuff. So I kind of brought this weird Mechazilla looking thing there. And I just wasn't sure how well it was going to be received. So when I won, I was pretty shocked, to be honest.
That's cool, man.
Dave Perowitz was there, him and his daughter Jody, and they were cheering me on and stuff. So that was really cool. It was just a really good night. It was one of those moments I'll never forget. And then after that, went to Born Free the next day, had the bike set up there at Born Free, and that was an amazing time because I got to see all those guys and those builders, their level of, you know, accomplishments and the things they can do. It was really cool to see that, and really liked it. And then ended up going out, you know, last year with the other build, the Punch 98, took it out to Born Free. But that second time, like going out Born Free, it was much less stressful. I mean, obviously the deadline itself is stressful. You want to do the best thing you can because everybody in the world's looking at those bikes, you know, like Born Free is in our world, bike building and in this country, that's like kind of the tier that you want to be to, you know, if you get invited to that
Super Bowl of bike buildings, basically.
Right.
What was that like to be around all those legends and then to actually place first? What was going through your head?
Yeah, it's just nuts, man. Like I still don't really look at myself as like a minister bull or anything. And that's like I just really like doing this stuff, you know. It's my life. Like I literally, and I'm 7 days a week out here. This is all I do. I don't have kids. It's just my wife now. We have a couple dogs and a couple cats, and you know, I have friends, but like not like nobody like comes over and hangs out. Like, you know, just like this is it. Like I'm just like I'm like almost like a recluse in my shop. And when people come over, it's for a reason. You know, it's like we're working on something or we got something going on. So it's really cool. Life has been crazy this last 4 or 5 years. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of stress, a lot of fun. But I would never want to do anything else again. You know, it's just I feel like where I'm meant to be.
I don't know. Well, where you're at is pretty good, man. So I'm happy that you're doing it. So
I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, let me ask you a question. One of the cool things what you did was, I mean, beside the motorcycle cannonball, cross country chase, obviously, you did the speed, the Sons of Speed, this past year, and actually won the 30.5 single class.
Yeah.
What made you want to test yourself? And what was that experience like to get into that? Because I know you guys you decided to go take a look at it. You decided to build a bike for it. What was your thinking going into that part of it? Because I mean, Billy Lane's really building something cool with this thing. It's bringing out a lot of the greats out of the industry back into something like this. What was that feeling like? Because I mean, you won the biker build-offs, and now you're building a bike for racing, and you won that too. So what was that like?
It was awesome because like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm like really big into board track racing, like especially so like with our company, we do all the old parts and stuff for that. So it goes hand in hand with what we're doing. Like that's my favorite part of everything we do is the racing, the antique racing, because the way I look at it is nothing we have today in the performance world, especially, but even just generalized motorcycles would exist without vintage performance.
That's right.
Right.
So it's like we all had to start somewhere. That's where it is. So like what Billy's doing with the Sons of Speed is it's just amazing because he's giving us the opportunity to bring those old machines to light, because until that stuff exists, like Sons of Speed or the Chase or these cross country events, people you can see it in a museum, but there's nowhere else to see it. So Sons of Speed for me, the first time I went down in 21, I was like instantly hooked. It was a no-brainer. I'm like, yep, I'm in. Like I didn't even have to see it. You say vintage board track racing, you're actually doing it. I'm like, I'm in. So Tom, we built a bike for him first, and he went out and he won it like 2 or 3 times under our competition flag. We really started getting big into it because we race 2 times a year down in Florida, and then we race again in Tennessee in May, like end of May. So it's a dirt track. But so we built a couple bikes. We built Tom's bike, and then I got my bike built. I was racing the twins. I have a 1919 twin hot rod that we did, and then I was racing that. In the first like 2 or 3 times I went out, I kept blowing it up because we're really, really pushing these things super hard. Like we're taking these little tiny, 9-10 horsepower motors, and we're putting like 20 horsepower into them, and gearing them way up. And board track bikes don't have a lot of horsepower, but you gear them super tall. So when you're telling people you're racing these old bikes, they think slow. Well, we're not really going slow. We're still doing 90 miles an hour, but just without brakes or anything, no suspension.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, so it's a little crazy. Yeah. Like people think like, oh, you guys are nuts, but like you have to love it,
That's cool
to be into it. But yeah, so we went down. I have another bike that I race too. It's a 1927 factory pea shooter single that Harley built. So like when Harley started transitioning out of the board track races back in the late teens, early 20s, because people started like getting killed all the time. They didn't want to be associated with all that. Right. So the whole sport kind of died.
Yeah.
And they moved heavy into dirt track racing and then the hill climbing. And the factories did. So what Harley did is it came out with a real high-end factory single race motor called the nickname there, pea shooter. It was an overhead valve, pinion-fed, oiled, race, purpose race-built motor. Joe Petrelli used to race them for the factory all the time. And it looked a lot like a Crocker. A very successful race bike. Well, we have a real factory engine, and I built an entire chassis around it in a few weeks. Like I put this whole bike together, went down and raced it. I had it geared a little bit wrong, so I couldn't really compete. I got second place. Was going to race that bike again this year. I was going to take that one down and race it again because I had raced that one last year. And last minute, I decided to make a pivot. I took my twin chassis, my board track Keystone twin chassis, and I pulled the motor out of it, and I put Tom's single race motor into it that we'd already rebuilt because he had wrecked that bike back about 3 years ago in Tennessee. He wrecked that bike and he broke his back.
Shit.
And messed up his spine and got really messed up. But he can't really race anymore. I mean, he can. He just, chooses not to.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he wants to, but we're always trying to talk him out of it because he's got a lot of other things going on. So he flags the event now. But anyways, in dedication to Tom and that bike and what that bike's capabilities were, I thought it'd be cool to take that motor that he used to win on and that he broke his back on and get it back into a frame and go out there and get a win on it for him again. Because he always felt pretty bad about not only wrecking, but like just like, because we're a team, we have a pretty tight knit team, and he just felt like he was letting us all down. Right. We're like, dude, you're good, But so I went out there with that bike and back in March, put it together like a week before the race, like I always do everything last minute. And got the win. And it was like a super, super cool thing because it was like kind of putting their final stake in that, like saying like, hey, that motor did its job, and
that's right.
We won a bunch of events on it, and it just kind of brought the title back home to, we always say, Comp B. So
that's killer, man.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
That's incredible. So we wanted to get into the Trans-American Motorcycle Endurance Run in September of 2025 this year. 75 daring men and women will embark on a coast-to-coast run with 100-plus-year-old motorcycles, which is just a cool concept to begin with. Tell us how you got involved in that, and can you tell us details, what it's all about? Yeah,
so it's we decided to start the event like late last year. I think we made the announcement. The Cannonball kind of been, we've been hearing different things, like it wasn't going to happen, and people were talking about like they weren't really hearing about the next one because it's usually announced pretty far in advance, like every 2 years. It's like a reciprocal thing. There wasn't really, nothing was really happening. So Tom and myself, and for obviously for competition, it's a lot of our parts and stuff go in events like that for keeping these bikes going. we just decided, you know, it was a good move for us to keep this kind of thing going and not let it kind of fizzle out. Because once people lose an event, they take their time and they put it somewhere else, you know. So we wanted to make sure it kept in an even pace every 2 years and keep people prepped and constantly showing people like, hey, this is happening, this is what we're doing, and promote it really well, you know. So my wife, Kelsey, you know, she does a lot of promotional stuff and website stuff. So she ended up, we put her in charge of it because I don't have the time at all. But so she's running the entire event. She's a race director. We launched this thing. We're doing a coast to coast in September, beginning of September this year. We're taking 75 bikes from Nags Head, North Carolina, and we're going all the way across country, all the way up into Oregon. And we're going to finish on the coast there. So
cool.
Yeah, ocean to ocean. Our event's kind of special. There's some differences from other ones like that. It's 100-year only. So the newest bike you can possibly have on this event, it has to be 100 years old. So anything that's 1925 and earlier. So we already, you know, we have got, So we have guys either, you know, 1909, 1910, 1911, all the way up to 1925. We got people from all over the world coming. There's guys from Italy coming. We have a couple from Japan coming.
That's amazing.
It's going to be a really, really fun thing. And every day, it's 16 days total. So every day you're going to average anywhere from like 250 to 300 miles a day. And you know, you're allowed to have a pit at night. Like you can have a pit crew to work on the bikes. You can rebuild your motors, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. But during the day, while you're out on the road riding, you have to keep that bike running yourself or help from another rider. But you can't have like a crew following you. There's no pit, like work truck behind you keeping you running. You're responsible for that bike. And then if you break to the point where you can't fix it, we have 2 sweep trucks at the very, very back of the pack. They will load you on a trailer. And you'll ride with them the rest of the day or wherever you're at on the course, and you'll get picked. You know, you'll get dropped off at the pit at night, and you'll work on your bike and try to get it back on the line in the morning. So
that's super awesome, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a big time thing for us. It's our first one,
and this is something that you started, right? This is something that all right, that's cool. So you're going to try to kind of do this on an annual basis, correct? That's the vision
every
for
2
it.
years. Yeah, we'll keep the tradition going. Every 2 years, there'll be a race you can sign up for. You know, there's an entry fee to get in, but your hotels are lined out. So like, food sporadic, like we're going to be pulling these towns. Like we announce all the towns,
right?
Excuse me, that we're stopping at. And the towns are like having like, we're going to have like a big finish line.
That's
like
killer.
You roll in this town, they'll have like an antique bike show. Like people will come and see the bikes. You'll have fans. We'll provide food. You'll have bands and news TV channels coming in to interview the riders and stuff. So it's all about the riders. It's all about making them feel like they're part of something special, which it is. You know, it's a big feat to ride a 100-year-old motorcycle across country.
Right.
It's not an easy challenge.
Not at all.
How do you have your? You can't already have 75 signed up.
We're at 60 some right now.
Jeez,
like
that's
55
awesome.
or 60. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
you still got some time.
Really,
you still got the summer, anyways. I mean,
yeah, we're actually cutting it off in the sign up in July. So yeah, I think my wife Kelsey just announced it. So like July 15th or something like that.
Serge, you got to sign up.
I don't have a 100-year-old bike. My oldest bike is a 1942 Survey. That's all I got.
That's all right. They're out there. We can find you one if you want to get in.
Oh man, if I had the funds, I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat for sure. Hey Sean, let me ask you this, man. We've been fortunate enough, you know, as a startup podcast last year and a half, have some amazing guests on, not only small businesses and entrepreneurs, things of that nature, but also legends like Paul Yaffe, Dave Perowitz, Brian Cloggs, Buzz Cantor, and others. Your name came up from their lips, man, when we spoke with them about people that they're excited about in the industry, that are doing the right things. What does that mean to you, man? I mean, you're talking about Mount Rushmore guys, talking about this guy who left corporate, man, to build this thing and chase his passion, and now he's like off the charts, madman crazy, doing amazing things. What's that mean to you personally?
Oh, it's huge, man. It's like, again, like if you go back in time and told me, 5 years ago when I was, at my job, and that I'd be doing this stuff and I'd have all these guys in my corner, I'd laugh at you for one. I wouldn't even believe you. But like all the things that have happened, I've been very, very fortunate. Again, I don't ever look at myself as that level, especially those guys. But like, to me, having them say that, it's very humbling. Cause I'm just doing it because I love it. I think all those guys and everybody that does this stuff to any kind of level, you have to be obsessed with it, because anything that's worth doing is worth putting everything into, so, and that's what I do. And I just try to, I don't know. It's like, I just try to keep pushing myself and hopefully stay in everybody's good graces along the way. I try to do right by everybody I can, and keep the history alive. That's the big thing. With all these guys is, they're the ones that kind of inspire me to even get into it from a young age. Like you talk about Dave Perowitz and Paul Yaffe and Billy Lane and Jesse James, all those guys. It's like, it's just crazy. Cause like little 10-year-old me, I can't even fathom like telling them like, oh yeah, you're hanging out with these guys. And
right.
Like it's crazy. Yeah. It's like you called, just imagine somebody that you really looked up to from a young age, a superstar in your eyes, and now you're, friends with them essentially. So that's a cool thing. A lot of times I got to pinch myself. I wouldn't be here without help. I'll tell you that. I have a lot of really good people in my corner, and, I feel like there's a little bit of luck involved there. So, it's just great, man. It's a great ride, and I hope to keep it going.
Yeah. So what keeps your creative fire going? What gets you hyped in the morning to head in to start a new build or whatever project you're working on with everything that you've already done?
No, man, it's a lot of things, but like, we got some stuff going on right now. This one's different for me because I can't even talk about it. We're doing a bunch of crazy stuff right now for a television show. It's going to be coming out later. So it's been tough for me though, because it's like I'm so excited about it, and it's like it's so much. It's so in my zone. Like it can't possibly be further into what I'm obsessed with. Like it's like literally that thing. And for me, it's like I'm excited to like for everybody to finally see it, like when it's done. But
is this through competition distributing, or is this Sean Jackson and his team?
It's Comp D. It's like everything I do now, I pretty much try to do it under our banner. In going forward, everything you'll see out of my corner will all be the stuff that's in our wheelhouse, and I'm not just doing that because that's what our company does, but that's what I love,
That's right.
I love the old stuff. And that's where my passion is the really, really old stuff. So, I try to do, I don't know if you guys see any of that stuff, but like, I try to do like informational posts a lot.
Always.
I try to keep people like the history, where we come from, all that stuff. But like, it's, for me, my creative juices is the history, keeping it alive and keeping people interested in this stuff. And then hopefully, God willing, get somebody interested into it like we are, so.
And that, of course, that creates a new fan base, that creates new customers, that creates a larger community. I mean, what you're doing is perfect, man. I love that because I'm old school too, man. I understand the technology of the new stuff and that's coming out, but there is nothing out there that excites me when I look at it. But then I look at the stuff that you put out, and it's like instant motorcycle porn for me. So it's just like, I just love that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just, to me, and I know there's a lot of people out there, even some younger minds that are still now kind of learning a little bit more about the vintage stuff. So I watch the stuff that you post, and you're always bringing some form of old history pictures up. of bikes and people and factories and shit like that. It's so cool, man. I love that you're keeping that alive. Let me ask you this. What does your creative mind do when not working at the shop, just to enjoy life on the regular basis, off the cuff, and
Oh man,
not motorcycle related?
yeah, that's a tough question because like I'm not even lying to you guys. Like the last 5 years for me has been like literally this just about every day. Since I started this, I haven't taken a normal vacation or done anything. So I go into bike shows, like doing events. It's all something related to this industry, but some things I used to really enjoy, I guess I can like, for me, at some point in time, like right now we're a small company, and I'm trying to really grow the business. So it's like, I'm putting every ounce of energy I have into that right now. But outside of this world, I guess I do enjoy fishing. I always love fishing from a young age. So like for me, I like to, like, once I can slow down sometime and smell the roses again a little bit, stuff like that. But for me, motorcycles are light.
Understand.
It really is.
Understand. I wouldn't have expected a different answer anyway. So,
yeah, it's what it is.
Once this TV show hits, man, it could go crazy. You know that, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like
small business will turn into something very, very big pretty quick.
Yeah.
So, obviously, fingers crossed that happens in a positive way and not a stressful way. So that way you continue to live your dream and do what you do. Sean, where can people find you? Where can people reach out? Watch what you do?
So I have a YouTube channel. We try to keep everything the same. So it's like Action, AXTION, 88 Jackson. I'm on YouTube, and we have a channel, and we've been getting a little bit better at posting videos and stuff like that.
Cool.
Current builds that I have going, I'm allowed to show and stuff like that. I got that. I have Instagram, obviously, Action 88 Jackson. Competition Distributing's on Instagram. It's competition_distributing. That's the company page, and then we're also on Facebook.
And you have you have the website too for CompD, right?
Yeah, competitiondist.com. That's where you can find like all of our parts and all the current stuff that we have going out. So,
and one of the coolest things on competition.com is I noticed in your contact form. First off, it's an awesome website. So good on your wife there.
That's all. That's all my wife.
Nice. That she killed it. And then the other cool thing is when you go to your contact form, there's a contact us, but there's also a suggest a part link that I think is awesome. That's really cool. You do that, man.
Yeah. We did that. That's kind of a crazy thing you brought up, because like we did that from day one. It was like the biggest thing for us is we want to be able to connect with our customer. So like, obviously I can't get to everything, especially being as small as we are. It's really hard, especially right now with our workload that we have going. But hopefully at some point I can get to a future position where we can, really, really get to everybody's individual requests, because there's a ton of stuff out there that still isn't made and people can't find, and it's rare stuff. So.
Are you planning on having kids?
No, I don't think so. We
talked. You gotta find some way to pass the torch.
Yeah. It's like I'm 37 now. My wife's 39, so it's like we're kind of getting to that age now where it's like, well, if we didn't do it now, and what are we gonna do? So
enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. Travel, have fun. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
It's just like you got enough on your plate at this point in time. So hey, listen. Thank you for answering all those questions. I've got a million more, but I know you got to give back. We got a speed round next to do a quick one. Check out your quirky side and your funny side on this thing. All right, so here's the deal, man. We put 2 minutes on the clock. If you don't make the 2 minutes, you send Ben and I an autographed picture of Comp D with yourself, saying to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, Surgeon Ben, thanks for having me on, type of thing, so we can hang it on our wall.
I can do that anyway.
All right, killer, man. That would be awesome. It'd be an honor to have this hanging here. So that's for sure.
Heck yeah, it would.
All right, my man. Yeah. Let's do it, Ben. Put 2 minutes on the clock. Let's go to town. Ding. All right. Your favorite builder of all time?
Oh man, that's tough.
Starting off with an easy one.
I like talk to all these guys too. Man, like current builder or like old
You're
school
just
builder?
your
I guess
favorite
all-
builder of all time, man.
Oh,
You're not
man.
hurting anybody's feelings. They're all good.
No, I know they're all super good. Man, I'd have to give it a tie. It's gonna be for me. It's gonna be like Billy Lane, and I really like Maxwell Hazen. I think
Yeah.
you guys had
Yeah.
him
We had him
show.
on the show. Yep. Yep. Max is good.
Max, dude. Awesome.
He's a monster.
Yeah,
He's a-
absolute. Every time I watch that guy, it's just-
He's like you, man. He's a super mad scientist, man. There's
Yeah.
builders and then there's mad scientists, and I put you and Max in the mad scientist world.
Yeah.
For sure.
Easily.
I appreciate that.
All right. What's the one bike you'd never sell no matter what?
All my FLH, the
I think we already
1970s.
answered
still
that
got that,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you send
Yeah.
us a picture of that?
Yeah, I'll say I got it all. So it's all original still, but I bobbed it out a little bit. I have a picture on my
And your
Instagram, too.
first chopper from when you were 10.
Yeah, I'll do that.
All
I
right,
got the-
Killer.
I got a
We'll
picture of
post that.
too.
We'll post that if you don't mind. We'll post it in the notes.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. If you could build a bike for any historical figure, dead or alive, who would it be, and what style would you go with?
Oh man, it would be for me. It'd be Otto Walker.
Okay.
He's a professional factory racer for Harley-Davidson in the late teens, 20s, and it would be a board track bike. All
Killer.
day long.
Killer. All right. Finish this sentence. When I'm riding my motorcycle,
Oh man, they're just living the
Okay.
dream. That's the best thing. The best thing to do.
what band do you crank when you're deep in fabrication mode?
So that's kind of crazy. I listen to everything, but I have like these weird kicks. Like right now, I'm in I like folksy,
Okay.
old folksy style music, and then a lot of like bluegrass and stuff like that. So,
Got it.
Yes. Heck yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I love
That's good. More satisfying, a perfect weld or a first kickstart after a full rebuild?
dude, first Kickstarter already.
I figured
Is that thing
I figured
fires?
you did say that. All right, that's cool. That's cool. One part of building motorcycles you secretly hate but are great at.
Oh God. Secretly hate.
But you tend to be good at it.
I would say wiring. I hate wire.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate it.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I can
cool.
do it. I just don't like it.
Understand.
Idiot.
If you weren't doing anything motorcycle related, what do you think you'd be doing for a living?
I'd probably still be doing, field. My final title is new product development, so I'd probably be in that industry
Okay.
doing something for similar.
Got it. Weirdest or most unexpected place you found inspiration for a build?
So one of my favorite places, I don't even touch base on this. For me, it's I don't think it's weird, but unexpected for sure. The first time was the Henry Ford Museum up in Detroit.
Yeah.
That place to me is like heaven on earth. I'll go there as many times as I physically can, but for me, every time I walk in that place and I see something old school, it's game on. That's a great place.
I mean, you're talking about like the heaven for engineering and innovation, man.
Oh man, it's awesome. I mean, like, yeah, you got Tesla stuff there. You got Edison and Firestone, all them guys. The Wright brothers' house is there. It's an amazing place.
Okay. Here's a good one. You get to ride one bike, one road, and one destination. What's your dream setup?
Oh man, it would probably be at 19. I would say like 1930s flathead.
Okay.
Like a big twin flathead. Pre-war.
Okay.
It would be location probably be in Europe somewhere.
Okay.
I've always wanted to ride in Europe. We've been there and stuff. I just never got a chance to ride over there. But it would be over in Europe. There was a couple roads. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But
Okay. No worries.
That's where it would be. For
All
sure.
right. That sounds good. What's your guilty but go-to alcohol and beverage? And if you don't drink, what's your go-to snack?
I don't really drink anymore, but I would say my snack is I love little chocolate covered almonds. Like I eat
Yeah,
those, like,
man.
so
when
good.
I'm
Best.
listening to 'em.
Yeah.
The best. All
Yeah.
right. Good choice. All right. Best piece of advice you've ever received and still live by today.
I would say it came from from my partner Tom, and he's always on the backside, like pushing me and keeping me in check.
Nice.
And I would say just keep pushing forward. That's one of his big things. We kind of make fun of him every once in a while for saying you're always moving forward. Keep plugging away. But realistically, that's it. A lot of people, the only reason they don't do things is because they ended up pulling out and they ended up backing out of it. So just don't quit, keep pushing forward, and eventually, grinding it out, you'll get it done.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. Great advice. Flathead, knucklehead, or panhead?
Flathead for sure.
I knew you'd say flathead. All right.
Yeah, I love flatheads.
I know you did.
Yeah.
If bikes didn't exist, what would you obsess over building instead? Planes, guitars, robots? What would you be into building?
It'd be aviation for sure. I'm
Aviation.
obsessed with like vintage aviation stuff too. Yeah.
All right, cool. Last one. Besides the One Gang Worldwide podcast, do you listen to any other podcast?
Actually, yeah. So my wife is like super big into like murder podcasts. I think
Okay.
like most women are.
Right on.
Well,
Which is
how to-
scary.
yeah, how to get rid of their husbands and not get caught. But I would say like the one I listened to the most, and she got me onto it, was the last podcast on the left. I like those guys.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a cool one. So they just have a bunch of crazy stories I like listening to.
All right, man. Wait, you did 2 minutes and 1 second, so we get that signed picture.
Unfortunately,
We get that signed picture for the
All
for the wall here. So I'm stoked you didn't make it. But hey, in all sincerity, Sean, man, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts, man. I know you got so much on your plate, brother, as a one-man operation in there and working hard by yourself to give us 2 hours of your time. And you got 2 humongous fans here in Florida, brother. I mean, I know you got fans all over the world, but you got guys here that are truly blown away by that incredible imagination in your brain, and just keep up the amazing work, and keep doing what you're doing, brother, because guys like you for our industry inspire others to join the industry and do creative and amazing things. So continue that trail. All right.
All right. Well, yeah, I really appreciate that, guys. Kind words. It's like, like I said, it still blows me away to this day, but I appreciate you guys having me on and taking the time to even do that. So I definitely appreciate everything.
absolutely. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you, man.
Yep.
Be
Have
good.
a good one, guys.
You too,
too.
brother.